Okay, so this is the third day of our camp, and this shot that we just threw is what we have in the specto here on lane 8, and that actually, that ball speed got a little bit higher than the other ones. Now, even though it feels that you're going so slow and everything develops a lot later, and then you go, this could not be right, you end up with actually higher numbers of everything. Your ball speed is higher, your rev rate is higher. Now, rev rate is an outlier, okay, because the sensor doesn't really see rev rate. It just kind of has an algorithm to it, and it kind of guesstimates it. And because the speed goes higher, the rev rate goes higher with it. Okay, so that is not really a realistic number. However, when I give you, for example, let's see here. Oh, okay. So so now when we have everything going on here, okay. Now what we see is here you have rev rate is over here, okay, which isn't really meaningful. However, here you got RPS, okay, and that means revolutions per shot. That is a number that is being calculated by the sensor, and it's not a it's read by the sensor. It's not really a calculation. Okay, so you actually ended up with more revolutions here than you hit before. See here you said you got 18, 17, 16, 15, whatever. So that's a much more realistic number. But the percentage is what really matters here. So that's actually very good. You're not losing anything in terms of rev rate, and yet you're actually getting even your speed was a little bit higher without really trying to throw the ball any harder. In fact, you go, man, when am I going to get to the foul line? I feel like I can't get there, right? So let's see in terms of physically what happened. Okay, what we were looking at is your being able to get a little bit bigger third step, okay, but not because your sequence was bad, because you were still good. You were long, long, then you slid that third step. Now, what that means is that because you had so much body and momentum and weight going forward in that second step with a big step, now what happened is you had to kind of slow down. So you put the toes first, and you slid it because a slide is kind of like no step because it's already in contact very quickly, right? Same thing as the people that skip a step is just a magnified um, power step to the point that you'd even have a step, meaning like the right foot doesn't go in front of the left before you slide. So it kind of stays behind like a skip step in a park kind of thing. So that's an exaggeration of a power step. In your case, the sliding that third step is kind of like avoiding the third step. So you're stopping it so early because you need to stop, otherwise the ball is going to be way too early on you. So let's see what we had. That's the last one we did. Okay. So that you see that's a lot slower than you normally do. Okay. And that's also slower. And that second step is large, which is right. So now your third step really gets long, and that's very good. And then you still have a power step, but it's not as minute as it was before. So when you actually are in that position, you are actually very good. Okay. So now you stop right there. That's where you stop sliding. Okay. That's where you are. So that's in a very, very good position. Your shoulders are already squared to where you're going. There's not really, if it moves a little bit forward, your shoulder, but they actually move. If you see the head over here, and you have your shoulder is in this area. Okay. Okay. So when you move and you let the ball go, okay. So now that the thumb is out, right? So your head moved to about there. Oops. There you go. And your shoulder moved to about there. So pretty much you move the same amount your head that you move your body. So that means that the entire system is still moving in that direction. What you don't want to see is when you stop sliding that the head moves certain amount or nothing, and then the shoulder ends up moving more than your head. That means that there's a circular motion to it. And when you get circular, then the direction of your arm is tangential to that position of the curve. So that means that if you let the ball go earlier, it's pointing more to the right, and if you go later, it's pointing more to the left. When everything moves the same, or none of them move, then at least the direction it doesn't get the integrity of that direction remains perfect. Okay, so even though you moved slightly going forward, um, it's still okay. Now, the only thing that is not really that great in that sense is that I can see at the very end when you let go. Okay, see right here. See how your left foot tries to kind of get up right here. See, it goes a little bit forward and sideways. That's because your hips are a little bit open because we're not getting all the way to there. We're still kind of very idle with that leg, and it stays on the inside of that shoe. It never really tips to the point that the that the system remains that way. So you have a tendency to open up a little bit, and that's why this foot down here, in that area, okay, you're going to see kind of move a little bit sideways and towards the front left side of the shoe, kind of that way, because you have a lot of weight that is pulling you this way. That's why the foot goes towards that area. And when you look at your body a little bit, okay, the hips are a little bit too far that way, okay, hips are a little bit too open, and because your line of play is over here somewhere. Okay, that's where your line of play is, right? So now the body being in an angle, you're going to have to get around your chest to kind of aim there. That's why it feels like your chicken wiggle a little bit. It's only because my body's pointing a little bit too far to the right, and I have to manipulate the swing so it goes more this way. So what we need to do in terms of getting that straighter is making sure that your hip doesn't open through the swing, but it actually closes to the swing. Okay, you have to do that in slow motion because at the beginning it's difficult to do. This is going to happen too quick. So before you start sliding, you have to have the intention of turning the hip and the leg onto the outside of the shoe rather than the inside. So because if you actually slide and then you try to do it, it's done. By then, it's already done. So you have to go, before I'm going to slide, I got to get the intention of going that way. And then you slide with that at the same time. If you fix that, then this goes away. Okay, that finish that you have sometimes, but in terms of your rhythm, in terms of the sequence, it looks very, very good. Your timing is great, it's perfect. In terms of getting to the foul line, this is perfect. Okay. That position with your body is very good. Very nice. Okay. And see that manipulation here. He's trying to save the ball from going there. It looks like my golf swing. I go that way, try to save the ball from going to the right. Okay. And that is because of that. So Very well done. Okay. And of course, you have a very strong game. What we need to get is a little bit more of that hip going the right way. So now your release can improve a little bit more. And where is it going to improve? Well, once you start going this way, right? And we're more that way, where the elbow is actually inside the hand, then you can move left a lot more. Right now, for you, it's difficult to move left. Okay, you can get to the pocket, you're not going to carry that well. And that's because your tilt is very low, okay, but also because you actually have to save it all the time. That you can't go that way and get the ball to do this. When you are left, it's very difficult for the ball to shape right. Okay, so that's what it's going to come from. But all in all, what we're working on, very, very good. So what I like to do is to use the last portion of what we have and try to get you a feel of what that hip is supposed to do. Okay, and we're going to work on it a little bit, but you have more than all the access to us every day. So send me a video once in a while. Say I'm working on the hips, Ruben. What do you think? Whatever, and then we'll go from there. Sounds good. Okay.